The journey of caring for a loved one who is living with dementia can be quite challenging. The aim of this podcast is to make caregiving less daunting and more fulfilling. On this platform, we share knowledge, understanding, and experiences. We enlighten, give hope, and encourage, and in the process, create positive awareness about different aspects of dementia. Welcome to my podcast, Dementia Caregivers Corner. My name is Julia Ratladi. Dementia Care, how deep is your love? In today's episode, we are opening up about heartfelt conversation about memory loss, mindfulness, and finding meaning when faced with cognitive decline. We'll talk about what it's like to live with mild cognitive impairment, how it begins, the emotions that it brings, and the everyday tools that can be used to help someone cope. We'll also look at how spirituality, compassion, and staying connected with others can offer strength, not just for the person affected, but for the families and caregivers too. Our guest is Sharon Lukert, a retired Buddhist chaplain with over 20 years of experience supporting people at some of the most tender moments in life through illness, grief, and dying. Sharon also lives with mild cognitive impairment herself. In this conversation, she shares her story, her wisdom, and the inspiration behind her book, Until My Memory Fails Me. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Sharon to Dementia Caregivers Corner podcast.
Thank you. It's so wonderful to be here.
Good. I can't wait to hear what we have to say about this. I wanted to say to you, I skimmed through your book, right? And I found a story that was fascinating in a way. You painted a picture of your grandma in the kitchen with a wooden spoon over the bowl of a dough. And your grandma was looking at you intently, calling all the names of her children, of her grandchildren, until she finally landed on your own name. And you said it got you wondered whether that was MCI or mild cognitive impairment. So what I want to know from you, if you were sitting with someone who doesn't know what mild cognitive impairment is, or who also name cascades, and they're wondering if they may be having mild cognitive impairment, how would you describe it to them with an experience?
That's a very good question and a good place to start, because mild cognitive impairment is a fairly recent diagnosis. And I like to describe it as between normal forgetfulness, which in looking back at my grandmother, forgetting names like that is pretty normal as we get older. So that's more like normal forgetfulness. And then there's dementia, which is when our memory and other brain functions are not working that well, so that we need a lot of help just getting through the day. Mild cognitive impairment is kind of in the middle. So you're still functioning fairly well. There might be a couple of things that you're having trouble with, but it's more than normal aging. And really the only way to know that is to get some testing done, some neuropsychology testing, which is how I was diagnosed and how most people I know are diagnosed. So I often say to people, if they have any concern about their memory, to talk to their provider. You know, this is a very early stage, and there's a lot of things that you can do to promote quality of life and keep your brain as healthy as possible for a very long time. So it can actually be a very positive thing to get an early diagnosis.
Mm-hmm. Sharon, some other people don't want to be associated with MCI or dementia. How do you even convince them to go for testing? Like if you have a family member like that?
Yeah, it's really hard. What I like to do is, and I don't know if I would say this exactly to the person, But for the person who's trying to convince their family member, there's a lot of stigma around cognitive decline. People feel shame, they feel worthless, they don't want to ask for help. So that can be one reason why people don't want to go. They're scared. It's frightening. And it really is frightening. I have times of feeling afraid of what might happen in the future myself. But there's another factor that can be involved. If there's a part of their brain where what neurologists call insight has been impacted, then they don't even realize that something's changed. So family members may be seeing this, but they don't understand that there's actually changes going on. It's a really hard one about how do you convince someone.
I can imagine. We just have to keep on keeping on. Yes,
Yes.
because you
Yeah.
don't want to. You feel like when you go there and you are diagnosed with that, that's a life sentence in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you have these symptoms that you are presenting, and people are not able to assist you properly because they don't know what is happening around you.
Exactly. Yeah. Some people have asked me, would it be helpful to give them my book? And I've wondered about that, but I think the person who's asking that, the family member or the friend, might want to read the book first
Okay.
and have a sense of what's in it. And then, start conversation. That's what I usually suggest as the first step. You might even have a few incidents that you've noted that, gee, yesterday you were having difficulty finding your way when you were driving. I wonder if were you aware of that? And starting the conversation in little ways before just saying, you have to get tested.
Yeah.
There's something wrong, which sometimes there's so much tension and worry about talking to someone that it comes out very strongly.
Yeah.
So starting gently and just starting the conversation and realizing it's going to be more than one conversation.
Yes.
It takes time and it's a process.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So in your case, Sharon, tell me, were you aware of some, like you were describing how your grandma was name cascading, were there symptoms that you presented that made you want to go for a diagnosis?
Yes. Actually, back in 2019, so quite a while ago, I worked in a hospital at the time. And a colleague of mine that I worked with every day, we're in the same department, she passed me in the hallway and I didn't recognize her. And so that was one. And I just kind of took note, didn't think too much about it. But not too long after that, my husband and I were downtown in La Crosse at a place where we go often, and it looked unfamiliar to me. So, with those two symptoms, which weren't memory related necessarily, but brain related, I decided to get tested. At that point, the neuropsychologist said there was only one area that was a little low, and he thought it was mostly stress. So, he suggested I retire soon because I had a stressful job, but also said, if you notice more symptoms, please come back. And a few years later, I did notice some more symptoms. Trouble with words was starting to happen, and I was losing things, which again isn't a symptom we think of that much with cognitive issues. We always think memory, but there's all these other little things that can happen. And that time he could compare my first test to the test he was doing. That was 2021. And he could see that I declined when he compared me to me 2 years earlier. So there was clearly something going on. And it was more areas of the brain were impacted. So that's when I got the diagnosis of mild cognitive impairment.
Okay. So were you aware of what that meant? Did the
No.
what is going to involve and
No, I really didn't. And I had a very good doctor because he gave me some handouts and
Mhm.
he gave me some resources, which not all doctors do. And so he gave me some information about what is myocognitive impairment. Because even though I've been in healthcare my whole life, I had never heard of it before. And I was an educator in the past, so I was very interested in finding out more. So I did a lot of research online. I joined research studies around Alzheimer's disease and just really started to educate myself. But I have to say, the first emotional impact was just shock and feeling like my whole world had been turned upside down, which I think is pretty typical for any serious diagnosis, you know. And it takes a while for the shock to kind of calm down and then be able to say, okay, well, how do I live with this? You know? And of course, in the beginning, there's no idea of how quickly or how slowly things are going to change. And at first, we thought things were changing quickly. But over the years, we've realized that, no, this is actually going to be a long, slow process.
And then now you have to inform your family. Do they understand? They have to come to join you on this journey to learn, because you didn't know as well what it was. You have to rope them in to come and say, let's learn this together as a family.
Yes. Yeah, and you know, as any family, different ones have different responses. You know, my daughter wanted to move here immediately and take care of me. I was like, no, I'm fine.
Hold on.
My son he's a journalist, and he was more into wanting to learn more about it, you know. And my daughter has come around to that too now. I think they both now, but that was the initial response, you know. And again, in the beginning, we just didn't know how quickly things were going to change. I did have, through research, I've also had a PET scan that shows amyloid in my brain, which is one of the indicators for Alzheimer's. So between the continual slow decline and the amyloid, they're pretty sure this is due to Alzheimer's, so this will be progressive, where not every MCI is. And that can be an important thing to find out too, because sometimes it's from medication, which can be reversed. And if it's from a stroke, you may still have MCI, but it doesn't change. It doesn't progress. So those are important differences for people to find out early if they can.
I hope you've mentioned those in your book. Have you? Good. You know why I get excited when I have to meet people such as yourselves to talk on my podcast is because you are living experience. So it's not just about reading. And I feel so much privileged as well to be talking with you. Sometimes some family members that I've talked with, they are even afraid to come near because they are afraid of what is going to happen. The fear of the unknown, let me put it that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
I found that more with my friends, and some have really rallied around me and are a great support. And a few have drifted away. And again, I think education is so important because people are afraid of this disease. I've heard from some people that they're not afraid of dying, but they're terrified of dementia, you know? And it's just like, it is a difficult disease, but so is cancer. So are so many other diseases. And we don't get to pick and choose. So we live the best life we can with what's going on in our bodies, you know?
I cared for a lady who lived with vascular dementia. She had like the friends, at least that I knew, they were like 3 girlfriends. They grew up together. But when her dementia progressed, it's like there was only one friend who was frequently visiting and others just stayed away. And I realized later on that the one who kept visiting, her husband died of dementia. So she understood it better than the other 2. So what are we saying to, okay, you have said it, education, maybe more encouragement to them who might want to run away because they have no idea of how to handle you maybe?
Right. In one of the events that I did recently, someone asked me what suggestions I would give for visiting someone with dementia. My mother has dementia right now. She's in a memory care facility right now. And so not only am I living with MCI, but I'm also caring for my mom. And my answer was just, just show up. You don't have to do anything. We're so used to trying to fix something or be busy when we visit someone. And if you do just almost the opposite with someone with dementia and just show up and see where they're at and meet them where they are rather than trying to have them meet you. And what I mean by that is, even in conversation, I just go with wherever my mom is. Sometimes she's talking about things that I know didn't really happen, but that doesn't matter. I mean, what matters is the connection and the heart connection and the being together and finding the little things that bring her comfort, like singing. She loves to sing. She was always a singer. So we spend a lot of our time singing together or listening to CDs, or, there's a musician that comes and visits her once in a while. So finding what can bring them little moments of joy and connection with you is so much more important than trying to fix things or do things for them.
Because there's really nothing to fix. You've come to visit me. I'm your friend. We've been friends since forever.
Mm-hmm. Right.
No, I hear you. I think that's one of the strategies that you use, like you mentioned, with your own mother. What are some of the strategies, maybe 2 or 3 from your book, that you can say, all right, if people use this, they'll be able to live fairly well with mild cognitive impairment?
Yeah. I think the foundation for all the different techniques that I mentioned in the book is, how can you meet each moment as it is? And I mean that on an emotional and a spiritual level. Your identity is changing, your abilities are changing, and it can be very, it feels like the rug is being pulled out from under you sometimes. An example, this was maybe 2 years ago. I've gotten very clumsy. I have a little bit of tremor and I have trouble with depth perception. And I knocked over a glass teapot that I loved and it smashed to the floor, broke into pieces with wet tea all over the place. And at the moment, I was angry at myself. I was like, why am I so clumsy? And I started cleaning the whole thing up. And then I just stopped and took a couple breaths. And it's like, I'm clumsy now. That's part of who I am now. And, I just stayed with the feelings, but also let them go. So, really let myself feel those feelings, take a few breaths while I'm feeling those feelings, and then pick up and just carry on. I think as if we repress those feelings or react them out, is when those emotions can take us over and they can last a long time and become difficult. And I think that's where a lot of the fear comes from, because we hold so much in. But if we can really allow ourselves to feel it, even just for a few moments, and then let it go. And if you practice that for a while, it gets easier and easier to do. So one of the tools that I mentioned that can help with that is called a pause practice. This is an on-the-spot meditation. So it's something you can do anytime, anywhere. And anybody can do this. It's not Buddhist. It's not based in any religion. It's really just something about being human, So I often do this when I'm doing the dishes or sweeping the floor or, something normal I'm doing in the day. And I just pause and I kind of stand up and take in a deep breath and just check in with myself. How's my body? How's my emotion? What am I thinking about? And just really allow myself to feel all that with a few breaths. And then take another deep breath and go back to what I was doing. It can be very powerful, actually. It can be a very powerful practice. And if you practice it often in the beginning, it can become a habit. And one of the things that they have found, especially with MCI, creating these kind of habits early on can actually carry over into when you have dementia. So this can help you now, and it can also have the potential to help you in the future and give you a tool, a skill that can help you cope with all the changes that are coming.
You mentioned that when you are giving example of that tool, the meditation, that is interfaith, right?
Yes.
You are for Buddhist faith, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think last 2 episodes, I was talking with Dallas. Dallas is in the US as well. He is of Christian faith.
Uh-huh.
Yes, and he was talking about how his faith is assisting. He lives with dementia, even though he doesn't like to use the word dementia. He calls it the dance. He,
Yes.
yes, he believes dementia, just like we know that dementia has got so much stigma attached to it. And we're talking about the importance of his own faith, which is Christianity, and living with dementia. You say you assist people of different faith, even when you were still a chaplain, right?
Yes.
How do we talk up the roles that you personally think spirituality plays in navigating the mild cognitive impairment or cognitive disorder?
Sure. I think faith is a really important thing. And people often think of faith as being a particular religion, but faith is something that's universal. And people can have faith in nature, it doesn't even have to be in a religious context. And that's something that I really learned as a chaplain, because, as you said, I worked with people of all different kinds of faiths and people who would say that they had no faith. But as you talk to them, you find out what's important to them. It's their family, it's their farm where, their family has owned for generations. It's the river. It can be different for every person, but knowing what brings you that sense of something larger than yourself and a sense of meaning and purpose is so important when you're going through changes. And another part of my book, I really encourage people to think about future planning for their spiritual and their emotional well-being, as well as for their legal and financial and health well-being, which is something that is often ignored. And again, I can use my mom as an example. One of my Buddhist teachers is Pema Chodron, who's a very popular teacher. And my mom has read some of her books, and I had a little picture of Pema that I gave to my mother, and she has it sitting on her table next to her recliner. Every time I go there, she points to it and she says, "She's with me. She's with me all the time." And it's just, I had no idea that that picture would be something that would give my mom a sense of universality and comfort. So I'm tearing up talking about it, because finding those things and thinking about it in advance and planning for it can be really helpful for you and also for the people caring for you. There were people that I would work with in the hospital who, if I knew they were Catholic in particular, if I recited the Lord's Prayer, often their lips would be moving along with me because it's so in their bones and it brings them comfort to hear it. So yeah, I think planning for I'm already planning for my future.
Yes.
So
yes.
I'm recording some of the Buddhist prayers that are important to me so that I can listen to them when I'm not able to say them anymore.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I was talking to one lady in Australia. She actually mentioned the same thing, that she would want these hymns to be sung throughout, the word of God to be playing in the background when she can no longer say it with her mouth. Very important.
Yes.
Have you addressed that in your book?
Yes, I do.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, I mean, we might be laughing about it, but it's a concern that when you're no longer able to speak for yourself, people are now guessing what you may or may not want.
Right.
Need. Yeah.
Yeah. This really points to planning for a quality of life rather than planning for your health. And it's a different part of well-being that you're planning for. But quality of life depends on our emotional connections, with family or others, and our spiritual sense of connection as well, So, yeah, there's so much that we can do that we haven't thought of so far, but hopefully that will become more a part of the overall picture of how we plan for our later years, whatever those later years are going to look like.
Yeah, that's get me thinking. How is your quality of life right now yourself? How would you rate it?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty good. There's a little caveat in that. I mean, I have lost certain abilities already, but I've also learned what I call workarounds. So they haven't stopped me from doing too much of what I would like to do. And where I can't do what I used to do, I've learned how to shift a little bit. I had to give up driving a couple of years ago. As I mentioned, I have some depth perception issues, and I also have a visual issue. So between my brain and my eyes, it was getting a little dangerous for me to drive. So I made the conscious decision to give it up. It was hard. I don't live in a large city, so usually how you get anywhere is either driving. There is a bus system, but it's very poor, honestly.
Yeah.
But that's one of the ways my friends really rallied around me, because I now have a different friend who is available to give me rides as I need them every week.
You mean just a friend who is a recent friend, or is a friend from long back? Because I'm in this group for dementia.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody shared on the group, Facebook group, that the husband of this lady who lives with dementia have hired her to be a friend to the wife so that they can do things together. What friend are you referring to here? It was my first time hearing of that.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that before. No, these are friends that have been friends of mine for a while. And
Okay.
we had a little group get together, and, a few of them stepped forward and said, well, I'm available. I can give you a ride. So we literally have a calendar schedule. And one of them's a sister-in-law of mine. One is somebody I used to work with, so they're people I've known from different parts of my life. But one of the wonderful things about it is we've gotten to know each other better, and so often throughout the year, I'll say, well, let's go for lunch too, and so we'll have some social time as well. So that's worked out really nicely for me.
I'm happy for you.
Yeah. So,
I'm happy for you because my mind goes back to the lady that I supported with vascular dementia. Like, this friend would come and they'll be like, let's go out for coffee. They'll go out for tea
yeah,
because they're tea people. Yes. And she will forget, obviously, later on that I've gone out with my friends. She would be like, okay, when are we going again? When are we going? As if I haven't gone at all. But that, when I look at her face and she's glowing and she's happy because she's been out with her friend.
yes, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I know my mom is like that. When I mentioned a musician that comes and visits her, and when she was just there yesterday, and I went at the same time so I could be part of the visit. And my mom just comes alive, and she's so vibrant and so engaged. Now, she wouldn't remember last night that it happened, but the important thing is that she had that moment. And it's the moments that are important. And I think that's one thing that people don't realize is that, yeah, maybe they will forget, but that doesn't change what happened in that moment. And those moments are precious for her and for me.
How do you create the moments of joy and mindfulness, even in the midst of the decline,
Yeah.
cognitive decline?
Well, besides the pause practice, another one is just really paying attention to details in your daily life. This can be easy on a walk. And actually, I'm a part of a support group, and I think support groups are really important as well. There's lots of support groups for caregivers, but very few for people who are going through cognitive change. So if you can find one, it's wonderful because you can learn from each other and you can support each other. Anyhow, one of the women in my support group, when she goes for a walk, if she sees something that captures her eye, like a bird or the way the sun is on the leaves of a tree, she'll take a picture of it so that when she goes home, she can look at them again. Capturing those little moments. I mean, I love watching the birds. And right now we have all these baby birds hopping around trying to figure out how to do things. And they're just so funny. And it doesn't have to be anything big. It can be those small little moments. It's almost like you mark them in your mind rather than just looking at them and then looking away. Notice, really pay attention to them for just a few moments and then go on with what you were about to do. You're almost building like a reserve of joy, happiness, contentment, by just starting to really notice all the little things that are around you all the time that are beautiful.
The way you are describing this, I see it and I feel it. I see it from this person who takes that picture. And remember, they're still walking, right? They may forget that they have taken that picture. But when they get home and they look at it, something new again.
Something new. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's brilliant. Before we run out of time, let's talk about your book. Until My Memory Fails Me. Why would you give that title? Until My Memory Fails Me.
It took a while to land on that title. The first title I had was Standing at the Gateway, because I feel like I'm at the gateway of dementia. But this seemed a little more, I don't want to say positive, a little more in the present moment. Because right now, and I do sometimes say, well, in that instance, my memory failed me.
Yes.
I have moments when my memory fails me.
Yes.
It hasn't failed me completely. And it's such an in-between time. And I think that's one of the important things for people to realize that, yeah, maybe you're not going through normal aging anymore, but you also don't have dementia yet. So it's this kind of, and there aren't many resources for it right now. I imagine more will be coming out as more people are diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. But right now, there isn't a lot out there for this very specific time. Now, I've been told that the topics in the book, relate to anyone, in the spectrum of cognition, but it was really written for people in this in-between time.
Great title. I was just looking at it, Until My Memory Fails Me.
Mm-hmm.
More like I will not give up until my memory fails me. I'll go on. I see the positivity of it, though, even though you say you don't want to say the positive. But right now, that's where I am currently at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Until then,
right,
I'm still Sharon.
Yes. And these are things that I can do now. Yeah.
Yes. Where is it available? Where can people find it? Where can people get it?
Sure. Well, it's on Amazon. They can order it there. It is also on Shambhala Publications, who published the book. Goodreads has it, and Bookshop has it. Barnes and Noble. And if your local indie bookstore doesn't have it, you can go in and request them to order it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this short conversation. Short but impactful. I could feel each and every word that came from you. So thank you very much, Sharon, for honoring our podcast.
I really appreciate this. It's been wonderful talking with you.
Thank you very much. Let me take this time to thank you, our dear listeners, for tuning into this episode. If you enjoyed our conversation or are passionate about dementia care, please consider leaving a review and sharing this episode with someone who might benefit from it. Your support helps us reach more and more people and raise awareness about mild cognitive impairments, including dementias. Until next time, thank you. Bye for now. Dementia care. How deep is your love?